Welcome everyone. So happy you can join me here today. So today we're going to have a very cool training seminar here. Okay, we're going to talk about how you take advantage of these rising rents and how to increase the net operating income, or the NOI, of your multifamily assets, and what it actually means, why it's so important. Okay, so if you don't know me, my name's Agostino Pintus. I am with Bulletproof Cashflow. I've been investing in multifamily deals for, I don't know, almost 20 years at this point. And in that time, I've acquired well over 1,000 units at this point. And I've also done a lot of development, a lot of ground up, all multifamily, of course. And we also have a fund that buys net lease assets as well, right? So under a different fund that we do that, blind pool fund, right? So needless to say, I know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about putting together multifamily type of deals, and how to help people like you out there become successful at doing this as well. So I personally have seen my portfolio value appreciate enormously. It's primarily through having a relentless focus on maximizing NOI, all right? And I'm passionate about helping others build wealth through real estate investing, which is why I do these seminars and do these webinars. So if you're interested in learning more about this type of stuff that we do, okay, go ahead and check out the YouTube channel. We have well over 700 videos where not only do we have stuff like this, but we also have done over 400 videos now, over 400 shows on our Bulletproof Cashflow show. And we've interviewed the best of the best in the multifamily and real estate space. Okay, so go ahead and check that out, all right? If you'd rather just listen to it, of course, Bulletproof Cashflow is available just about any popular podcasting platform out there, okay? So let's dive into it, all right? Now, according to the National Multifamily Housing Council, there's over 12 million households in the U.S. that rent apartments. Okay, demand is now stronger than ever, even in today's wacky economy. Okay, inflation's taken hold. People are still looking for multifamily housing, right? They're still looking for homes. So as an investor, this presents a huge opportunity to capitalize on the rising rents and increase the value of your properties. Okay. By increasing the value of the properties, it's not just a one-way street, by the way. It isn't just you trying to increase the properties and increase the value, the rents rather, and just capitalizing on that only. But by increasing the value of the property, the key word being value, you're increasing the value for the person living there as well. Okay, so it does take, of course, putting money into the asset to make it a better place for people to actually want to stay at. So it is a two-way street. Okay, so when we're talking about this, we're also keeping in mind we're trying to build better communities. We're trying to build a better environment for the folks that live there. Okay, but today I'm going to be providing you with a blueprint for doing just that in terms of building NOI in your multifamily assets. Okay, we're going to do a deep dive on everything related to NOI, what it is, why it's important, how to calculate it, and how you can increase NOI. Okay, trust me when I say that truly understanding and optimizing your NOI is absolutely critical to your success as a multifamily investor. It impacts your cash flow as well as the value of the asset itself, right? It's all drawn off of NOI, okay? So we're going to go through some of the tactics and some of the ways you can substantially increase your NOI to make more money from your property. So, and again, listen, whether you're getting started or you're a seasoned investor looking to take your portfolio to the next level, there's always something new you can pick up from other folks, all right? So let's go ahead and dive right in, all right? So first, what is NOI? NOI stands for net operating income. It's a calculation that real estate investors use to determine the profitability of an investment property. Okay, so specifically, NOI is the amount of income a property generates after all operating expenses are paid. So it does not account for your debt, your mortgage, any type of money owed. Maybe you have an owner finance deal, whatever, interest payments, IO payments, whatever. None of that's included, okay? So it's just how much money does the asset produce, okay? So it's the measure of the performance of the asset itself, independent of how it's financed. So the calculation looks something like this. You have the gross rental income, okay, minus the operating expenses, and that equals your NOI, your net operating income, okay? So your gross rental income includes all the money you collect from the tenants, okay? You have rent, maybe you have parking, maybe you have late fees, you have application fees, you have pet fees, whatever type of fees or type of benefits that you have for a tenant living there that they actually pay for, that's part of your gross, okay? So any dollar that's brought in from operating the asset, okay? Think of it like a business. How much does it cost you? Like, what are customers paying you? It's the same sort of thing, okay? Your operating expenses are all the normal costs that you need to run the property. What is that exactly? Maybe you have taxes, insurance, maybe you're paying for some or all the utilities, maybe it's maintenance, maybe it's management fees or payroll or things like that, okay? Your OPEX is different than your CAPEX, by the way, so don't get these two mixed up. You can't bundle them all up. Your CAPEX is like renovations, or maybe you're replacing the floor or putting up paint or new windows or whatever it is, okay? This is not included in your operating expenses. You have to make sure that you pull that part out. Okay, pull out your CAPEX. What does it cost to operate the asset? That's what you're looking for, okay? So let's look at a real world example, all right? So let's say your gross operating income, maybe you pull in $100,000 for rent, okay? And you're collecting $5,000 for parking, another $2,000 for fees. Maybe you have late fees of $1,000. Great. You're up to $108,000. Super. Your operating expenses, maybe you have taxes at $15,000, insurance at $5,000. Maybe maintenance is about $10,000. Management's $8,000. Utilities are $3,000. So your total's $41,000. So that means your NOI is equal to that gross income minus your expenses. So that equals $108,000 minus $41,000 is equal to $67,000. So in this case, you have NOI of $67,000. Not bad. All right. So by subtracting your operating expenses from the gross rental income, you're left with the net, which is the NOI, net operating income. That's what it stands for, right? So it's a helpful metric because it shows you how much cash the asset is generating independent of financing costs or anything else like that, okay? NOI is commonly used to really show the value of an investment property and determine what the purchase price could or should be. So it really represents the profitability of the asset itself, of that real estate investment, okay? Now, as you're about to learn, the higher the NOI is, the better. Makes sense, right? So how do you increase NOI? That's a question, right? How do you increase the value of the asset through NOI? So now that you understand how the basics of NOI is and what it is and how it works, let's examine just for a moment why it's so important, especially when it comes to increasing the value of your multifamily assets. So in commercial real estate, there are two primary ways investors create value, okay? So the first is increase the net operating income and decrease the market capitalization rate, i.e. the cap rate, right? So let's break down how these two actually work. So increasing NOI is pretty straightforward. And so you make operational improvements to earn more rental income, or maybe you cut expenses, all right? So that's why I like multifamily so much, is that you have so many different ways of banging up your NOI, of cranking up your NOI by either increasing rents or decreasing expenses or anything like that, okay? And as someone who puts the deals together, you should always be looking at how do you decrease your expenses. Maybe you have to shop out your insurance, maybe once every quarter or once every year or something like that. Maybe you try to challenge the taxes. Doesn't always work, but you can try it. Maybe you're switching out vendors every so often, or you're doing a champion challenger type scenario where it's like some vendor will reach out to you and they want to win your business, maybe by switching out your landscaping. They can do a better job. It produces a better environment for your tenants, right? So we're going to cover some specifics shortly, but I want to share some of the examples for you, right? So now the capitalization rate, or the cap rate for short, is the rate of return or the yield the investor can expect from a property based on its risk level, okay? Risk level. I'm going to reiterate that several times here because cap rates are derived from market sales data and the conditions that are surrounding the asset itself. So generally speaking, the lower the cap rate, the lesser the risk the investor assigns to the property and the more willing they're pay for it, right? So here's an example, right? Let's say the cap rate for a brand new A-class luxury apartment community may be like 4%, while an older C-class property in a secondary market may be closer to 10%. So why does it matter? Well, the A-class asset is seen as a lower risk. Now, this is why I don't buy assets solely based on cap rate. I never do. I care about NOI. That's what I care about personally. I prioritize NOI first. How much money does this deal put out? How much cash does this deal put out? And what can I do to bang that cash up even more? Cap rate doesn't really bother me. Cap rate to me is an indication of risk, if anything. Because if you're looking at it, a 15% cap rate, generally speaking, is probably in the ghetto. And if you're going to try to go collect rent, you're going to get shot or something, right? You don't want to deal with that. I mean, some people do. Some people are okay with it, right? I'm not, right? So I would much rather have a solid asset in a nice community where my property management company is okay running the asset, okay? That's a key thing too, is the management of the asset too. Because if you're struggling to try to run the asset properly, it's going to increase your expenses and decrease your NOI. That's the downside of trying to go for one of these high cap rate type of deals, right? It does cost more money to run them. But as an investor, you cannot control cap rates directly. Listen, they fluctuate depending on the broader market forces, but you can control your NOI. And that is one way to boost the value of the property itself. So I'll give you a scenario here. Let's say you own a 10-unit apartment building and it has $100,000 in NOI. And the cap rate in the market, and that market where the asset is located, are currently about 5%. Okay, so if you want to determine the property's value, you divide the NOI by the cap rate. So what does that mean? Well, let's say $100,000 divided by 5%, $2 million. So using that cap rate, the property is worth $2 million based on an NOI of $100,000. Now, imagine you make operational improvements over the next year that increase your NOI by 10%. So now your NOI that you're creating, or this asset's creating, is $110,000. So we take $110,000 divided by 5%, $2.2 million. You increased the NOI by 10%, and the property value goes up by $200,000, that same property. Okay? That's the power of multifamily. That's why people go crazy over multifamily, is that one small change impacts across the entire asset will impact the value tremendously and adds money to your pocket. Okay? This is why I love multifamily, and this is why a lot of other folks love it too, right? You can do a small change, you can increase the asset value, increase your equity, and possibly even sell it or pull out cash or pull out more cash later on down the road. So let's check out another example here, okay? If your market sees rate cap compression, meaning the cap rate decreases even further from say 5% to 4%, that means the valuation goes up even more. So $110,000, like I mentioned previously, now you're at 4%, the 4% cap rate. Now you're at a $2.75 million. So it's the same $110,000. The NOI is at a 4% cap rate, and now it's worth $2.75 million. That's a huge increase from the original $2 million, even a huge increase from the $2.2 million we talked about before, right? So when it comes to maximizing equity and returns, you should absolutely focus on boosting NOI as much as possible, okay? You don't want to get into a position where you're overpricing yourself out of the market. Right? You have to be pragmatic about it. Maybe once a quarter, what you're doing is you're looking at the local market and you're looking to see, okay, rents is a big way to boost up NOI. Are you like, hopefully you're not at the top of the market. Maybe you want to be number two. You want to be the second highest in the market. Of course, you have to have the nice fit and finish of the asset itself that matches, or at least is better than some of the other competitors in your market, right? So you want to understand what how to price your product appropriately, okay? So let's go over some proven strategies that investors use to increase NOI of their multifamily properties, okay? I guess the first question you should ask yourself really is, should you increase your rents on that multifamily deal that you might own or thinking about owning, right? So like I said, one of the most obvious ways to increase NOI is to bang up rents, right? And since rental income makes up the bulk of your gross revenue, it's a smart way to go, right? However, many real estate investors are often hesitant to bang up rents on their properties. A lot of folks, they fear angry tenants will vacate if rents go up too much, too fast, okay? And that's a valid concern. It really is. So what you should do is increase the rents, but apply the right strategy so you can bang them up and optimize your NOI without having a mass exodus from the tenants, right? So here's what I'm getting at. Here's some things you can possibly do, okay? So do the market research. Like I mentioned before, maybe on a quarterly basis, you know your comps in the area, and you can see where you're at. Now, if your rents are substantially low, like way below market, you likely have an opportunity to increase NOI by just doing a slight raise, maybe a $25 raise or something like that, right? Nothing that's gonna like get people to just bounce and leave, right? It has to be positioned properly, of course, right? Now, you can also implement some nuisance increases too, right? So you don't have to do a full jump to market rate all at once if you're worried about vacancies. You can do smaller increases, like I said, 20 or $20 to $50 per door on an annual basis. I said 25 earlier, right? 20 is on the lower side, right? But if you spread them out over time, most tenants will tolerate minor rent hikes versus the hassle of moving. Okay, it's really what it comes down to. If you try to bang them up by like $100 all at once, for many folks, they'll get upset enough to leave, especially if they've lived there for a long, long time, right? So you have to approach it very cautiously, okay? Now, what you can also do is add value to justify the increase. Maybe you add some amenities like a dog park. Maybe you can upgrade the fitness center. Maybe you can install package lockers or something like that, or some along those lines. Now, you could, by asking for additional bang up on the rents, you're showing that you're demonstrating value by improving the property itself. So the resident that's living there will see that, oh, they're improving the property. I can see why they're charging us. Now, certainly on a 10-unit deal, you can't really do that. There's another strategy for that. But for some larger communities, it works out very, very well, okay? Another way you can do is offer lease incentives too. If you must do a big increase to get it closer to market, maybe offer 1 month free on a 12-month lease, okay? This will help ease the impact. This may help you maintain the occupancy while getting the base rents up, okay? Another way you can also do it is to offer some sort of bonus inside the unit. Maybe you'll say, hey, look, I know we have to increase the rents, and since you're up for renewal, we will install a ceiling fan or paint a room or clean your carpets or do some other upgrade that still benefits the asset and benefits the tenant, and it benefits you because now you get a lease renewal with a happy tenant that's living there. Okay, so by doing things like that, it helps keep the stickiness of the unit, right? Just be sure that when in any of these cases that you don't have the lease expiration in that last part of Q4 and the beginning of Q1, because that's when the market generally slows down, the rental market slows down, right? So you want to try to push it off push off the lease end time either before October and after probably February or March, okay? So you want to do that. But ultimately, the key is to inch rents upwards consistently over time. Okay, you want to get your rents at or just about market rate. Your tenants will pay for a well-maintained property. They really, really will, you know, especially if they get great service, they get great amenities, and you're on top of everything that they're asking for, they'll pay for it. They really will, you know, they'll appreciate it. And there's ways of organizing the leases. So if you're able to systematize this, and you're looking at the rents on a quarterly basis, to automatically throw the number on that lease that's about to come up, say in 2 months from now, you already know you want to increase the rents. Go ahead and just tag it on the lease right now. So when you present it to them, you won't have to remember what the number's supposed to be. I mean, be proactive about checking this stuff, right? That's really what it comes down to. Now, according to data from Rentometer, just being $50 below rent can rob you of $100K in value over a 10-unit deal, okay? You don't want that to happen, right? You want to increase your NOI and you want to increase the value, because leaving tens of thousands of dollars on the table by lagging on your rents destroys the asset value. You don't want to do that. And that's the whole purpose of why people do multifamily. It's not just for the cash flow. It's because one small change across a larger portfolio can increase the value significantly. Okay, that's what it comes down to. But again, increase it constantly but gradually. Okay, that's going to increase the overall valuation without killing your occupancy. Okay, but when you do it strategically, incremental rent increases can result in huge NOI and big valuation growth of the asset itself, which is what you want to do. So don't leave money on the table. Get in the habit of consistently inching towards those rental market goals. And you do that, of course, by setting up your systems and processes to make sure that your property management company is doing that. Not all of them do it. They say they do it automatically. They will not do it automatically. You're going to have to, on your weekly calls, hopefully having a weekly call with your property management company, and you're going over all your numbers and you're going over all the performance, okay? Even if it's 5 or 10 minutes, ask them, make sure on a quarterly basis, show me what numbers you got, show me your comps, you know, maybe put it in your calendar, and you maybe have a thing that says every quarter they have to do a comp report, you know, set it up on your calendar and make sure you put your property management team on it so you cover it on your weekly meetings, right? Do that, okay? Now, what are some of the other ways of getting NOI? Well, beyond rent, there are other ways to increase NOI of your multifamily properties. So what you can do is you can add ancillary income sources. Maybe you charge for parking, for pets, for storage lockers, package handling. Maybe there's washers and dryers, that kind of thing. Maybe it's also dry cleaning services, depending on the size of the property and the class of the property too, where you can have the dry cleaning company come up and they'll do like door service, that kind of thing. You can sometimes get some of that. You can get trash valets, another way to do it. But these types of things, these types of amenities that people will pay for, can add thousands of dollars to NOI very, very quickly. Okay. What else can you do? Eliminating concessions. You know, stop offering 1 or 2 months for free, waiving admin fees, or giving other move-in incentives that reduce the initial rents, okay? Go to full rent from day one, and of course, all this is dependent on where your occupancy is. I mean, if you're trying to do a rent special just to get the place filled up because maybe you're at a very low occupancy right now, that's a different story. But if the asset is running, it's stable, consistently over 90%, you have no problems, there's no need to do those types of free concessions. No need for that, okay? Depending on the market, of course, depending on what class the asset is, there's a whole lot of dependencies here, but generally speaking, you want to shy away from offering free stuff, okay? What else can you do? Implement RUBS, Race Utility Billing System, okay? Now, in some areas, RUBS is not legal. It's for certain cities, right? So just be aware that if you're going to do RUBS, and by RUBS, I mean, basically, if you're paying for utilities right now, like I alluded to before, and you want to bill that back to the tenant, make sure that you can actually do it legally without any problems. Otherwise, what you can do is have meters installed, have water meters installed, and potentially electric meters, depending on what that setup is in the property itself. That way you don't have to pay for the bill yourself, right? But just by doing that alone is huge. And if you're say in a 10-unit apartment building where you have a scenario where there's a washer dryer type scenario, usually in some of the smaller ones I have, smaller assets, what I'll do is I'll have separate washer and dryers for the individual tenants that live there, right? If it's a 10-unit deal, what I'll then install is I'll actually get the coin-operated ones, the coin-op washer and dryer. That way they have to pay to use the washer and dryer, right? You may want to get like 2 sets of each, right? So 2 washers, 2 dryers. And that way, if one fails, there's a backup right there on site, right? And the people using it can contribute to paying for the water bill, okay? But with RUBS, you basically have the tenants that are paying the proportional utility usage, and then you include it in the rent, and they pay it back, right? So that's huge when it comes to reducing your expenses and banging up your NOI, okay? So what else can you do? You can renegotiate vendor contracts. I talked a little bit about that earlier. You can keep a close eye on staffing, improve maintenance practices by putting SLAs in performance. So that way, if a person that you have on your maintenance team is supposed to get on a certain problem with a 24-hour period instead of stringing it out for a longer time, or they forget or whatever, those efficiencies cost money. Right, it makes the resident unhappy, and there's no upside. It keeps whatever the problem is, keeps it going. You don't want to do that. You want to stay on top of it. Okay. For every dollar that you save, it goes straight to the NOI, and that's why it's like people often talk about. You see the gurus on TV or on Facebook. How doing this stuff is easy. It's not easy, guys. It takes work. It does take work, but it's totally worth it. But it does take work. All right, and this means building in all those efficiencies. All right. So, what else can you do? Increase occupancy. Get those vacancies filled up as fast as possible. Okay. I find that Facebook Marketplace is a great way to run ads and get more people in the door, get more leads in the door. Because the way it starts is you have to get as many leads as you possibly can. And as you whittle them down to fit into that one unit, of course, there's a whole process there too. And this includes doing all the background checks and all that fun stuff. But streamlining the leasing process will help keep your occupancy up and keep those units filled up. Okay. Now, what else can you do? You can also add more units, right? So if you have unused spaces, like for instance, here in the Midwest, there's a lot of these older buildings that have former offices, like say offices is the bottom, and then there's multifamily on top. A great way is to just take those offices and convert them to multifamily. There's still demand for multifamily right now, that so much so that they'll probably grab a multifamily unit or be able to lease a multifamily unit before you lease an office, especially if it's kind of further away from the downtown space, right? Maybe have a garage or something like that, or some sort of storage area. You can turn into leasable apartment space, okay? The more rental income you can get from the same footprint, the better, okay? Now, what else can you do? You can purchase appreciation. So that means acquiring properties below market value, and you can get in there and build in that instant equity. So that's how this game is played. You're really trying to find a deal by coming in and banging up your equity there by going in and increasing rents, doing renovations to bang up the rents, that kind of thing. Okay. So as you can see, there's many avenues to boost NOI outside of raising the base rents, okay? Commercial real estate investors, like me, like many of you guys out there too, we utilize a combination of these strategies to maximize NOI, but also importantly here, it also comes down to managing your property manager. So being a good asset manager or having someone on your team to make sure that they being the property manager, doing all they can to implement all these various things that I mentioned a second ago here. So a little increase, a little here, a little decrease there, it all adds up. and it can be substantial over time. So you got to be relentless to finding ways to earn more cash, to have more cash come in the door while you're cutting expenses, okay? So that's all I got for you today. Hope this webinar sheds some light on what NOI is and why it's so important and crucial to understanding how it works for every single investor out there. So remember to focus on increasing your NOI as much as possible, okay? And when you do, you're gonna get that better cash flow, you get a better property value, you get to sell the asset down the road for more money because it's worth more money because it generates more cash, okay? The cool thing about it is that these small improvements can lead to huge results over time. Now, if you got some value out of this, okay, and you want to learn more about how this stuff works, I have a whole bunch of free ebooks. If you go to bulletproofcashflow.com, I have all kinds of free ebooks there. You can also check out themultifamilyadvantage.com. We have a mastermind, a 50-week mastermind. We go over details about how to do this kind of stuff, okay, and details delivered by yours truly. I don't pawn it off on some other dude. I'm the guy that's doing it, all right? And I can show you how to build success in the multifamily world, okay? So thanks for joining me here today. Greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions, go ahead and reach out. If you're watching the replay, go ahead and leave a comment on YouTube here, and then we'll get back to you, all right? Thanks so much, guys. I'll talk to you soon.